Let's dive into it.
Yeah,
You ready?
let's go. Oh, yeah.
Cool. Well, some housekeeping things. First off, everybody this year, thank you so much for coming. This is the Oregon chapter's BHA winter turkey tactics, all things winter turkey, fall turkey webinar or pint night. So if you got a pint, cheers. If you don't, whatever. I'm Chris Hager. I'm the Northwest chapter coordinator for BHA. So I work with both Oregon and Washington chapters. And with us tonight is Brandon Dykes. Brandon Dykes is, I'll let him introduce himself. But he is with Pheasants Forever. Before that was with ODFW and manages ODFW's hunt reservation program for turkey hunts. And we can probably get into a little bit of the future expansion or hopeful future expansion of that too. So, but before I give it over to Brandon and let him introduce himself, we've got him for 45 minutes. So if anybody has any questions, please put them in the chat. We'll hopefully leave a little bit of time at the end. It's Brandon's wife's birthday, so we've got to thank him very, very much for spending that time here. Megan is a saint for this.
So, don't thank me, thank her.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, thank you, Megan, for stealing you away from tonight. But like I said, if we can't get to your question, we'll try and do a follow-up either on Facebook or somewhere else on where we can answer those questions. And I'm sure Brandon will be able to, hopefully at least give you some information where you can reach him and kind of follow up too. So with that, Brandon, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, thanks, Chris. I recognize you hesitated to introduce me. It's probably because it's hard right now. I technically work for two places. Like Chris said, I'm the Hunt Reservation Program Coordinator, and I work for Pheasants Forever. That's who signs my paychecks as of February of this year. Before that, I did the same job for ODFW, where, with Michael Klein, our Upland Game Bird Coordinator, started the Hunt by Reservation program as a pilot project about 2.5 years ago. And, why do I work for Pheasants Forever now? It's basically a structural change for funding. It was a new position, and oftentimes in fish and wildlife, when we're creating new positions, you got to chase that funding and get it where you can to keep projects alive and test things out. So I had some great support from supervisors to test Hunt by Reservation and keep it going. So I just work for Pheasants Forever right now because they're an awesome organization out of the Midwest. Not a huge presence here, but I'll share with the group that it's not just pheasants that they're interested in. Pheasants Forever is called the Habitat Organization. So what we're doing with Hunt by Reservation in a tangential way does help habitat for turkeys and also other upland game bird species. So Pheasants Forever is on board with that, being the Habitat Organization. So they got behind this position, and I'm really tickled to work for them. It's been fun to shift gears from pure agency work at ODFW, where I started, and learn some new folks over at a different organization. Chris, you're probably in the same boat. You've played with some different conservation organizations, and I just like getting to work with people who are all on the same page in terms of conserving fish and wildlife for future generations. That's our mission statement at ODFW. Pheasants Forever is right up in line with that. So, yeah, the structure looks confusing to people, but just know I've got emails at both organizations. We're keeping Hunt by Reservation strong and trying to expand it into the future. And I might end up back at ODFW, but that's just, that's just structural. The work's still the same. So,
heck yeah.
I think we, we'll talk about that program tonight, and then obviously talk about some fall turkey hunting tactics. We'll just keep it informal, and I'll take questions however they come.
Right on. Yeah. So I think, like you said, like you mentioned, I think we're going to cover the program. I think we're going to cover some reg changes that's happening here in ODFW, which extends, a little teaser, extends fall turkey up into January. Turkey tactics, and then we can kind of go through there. But yeah, why don't we break into kind of what the Hunt by Reservation program is, what that brings for opportunity, and how that's accessible for, Oregonians.
Yeah, for sure. So at its simplest, Hunt by Reservation is an online platform where hunters can go book ahead of time a place to hunt. So if you're familiar with other access programs in the state, like Open to Hunt, or ones where you can just show up and maybe call a phone number that's on a poster board, or it's just totally welcome to hunt. We're similar to that, but the main difference is that you can book your day 2 weeks in advance, 3 weeks in advance, have a parking permit, and you know that you're going to have a spot when you get there. So that's a huge value add for folks, especially on the west side. I cut my teeth in R3 with ODFW, and one of the biggest observations I had in workshops where we were teaching people to turkey hunt and to duck hunt was, I don't know where to go. I have an anxiety about where to go, or it feels busy when I get in the woods. I want to be safe. And I was kind of seeing the writing on the wall with people's comments. And so in some ways, Hunt by Reservation had an R3 component too, where we wanted to get more people on the landscape in a controlled, safe way. We're not trying to replace other access programs. We're just trying to complement them. Washington's got a program like this. Cornell University does it with some depredation deer hunts. So we're not totally novel. I mean, it was totally novel for Oregon. But it's just a different style of access to really suit a certain type of hunter. I'll say that there's a depredation quality too. When we started this program, we had a good number of issues with turkey damage, and we got about 150 complaints a year statewide for turkey, and that was everything from they're digging up my garden to I've got 300 of them on the cattle pasture, to they're pecking at trucks or sitting on roofs. So that's what I mean by turkey damage and nuisance. And
was that like across the state?
That's statewide. That's statewide numbers. Just looking at our, I ripped some Excel reports and I just counted up average turkey damage per year complaints, and there's certainly hot spots, and I'll tell you, those are Eugene, Springfield, the town of Veneta. Corvallis has a turkey problem that's heating up, and the John Day River Basin in the winter is particularly bad out in Eastern Oregon. And then of course, Roseburg, for decades has been a hot spot for turkey. So when it gets cold, a lot of those birds dump down into the safer climbs and frankly, yards where people like to feed them. So Oregon does not have a native turkey population, but they were planted in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, and have really done quite well. And that's terrific, because we value the game bird in a big way, but we also want to honor the game bird by creating some balance on the ecosystem. So everything we're going to be talking about tonight in terms of tag changes and season changes and Hunt by Reservation, the backdrop for that is balancing and managing the turkey population for the benefit of the turkeys and the benefit of hunters and non-hunters alike. So there's a lot of tensions there, especially with these nuisance birds. So to close out, one of the original points of Hunt by Reservation was to help landowners with some of their turkey nuisance problems. So I interact with the landowners all the time to structure these hunts and build hunt packages. And, my message to them is we're going to help balance the turkey population in your area and do what we can through a tool of hunting. And hunting is and has been a classic way to manage game populations. That's how we a main tool for wildlife managers. So that's really the spirit of Hunt by Reservation. Put hunters in the field for their recreation and putting good wild clean protein in the kitchen. And then also helping landowners, and as an agency, that's something that's in our wheelhouse of responsibility, is not just helping hunters, our customers, but also helping Oregon residents manage wildlife populations in their area. And it's never going to be perfect, but we do what we can, and this program really is built as a win-win for hunters and landowners. And so far it's been working that way.
Heck yeah. And I think I mean, there's obviously that front facing purpose of it. And then there's this entire opportunity side of it where, you're being able to have opportunity, you're having access, right, for the public, even though you're going through this entire, regulated system. But essentially, you're getting your own little private property of hunting wild birds that you don't have to worry about other hunting pressure other than the hunting pressure that's, through the management system.
Yep.
And so what I think, especially from the where BHA is really interested about the program and is really supportive of the program, is like, you can bring a brand new hunter, right? You can bring a brand new or youth hunter that may not have had a lot of experience in the turkey woods, and I wouldn't say 9 times out of 10, but you're having a pretty good chance of actually seeing turkeys, seeing behavior, seeing up close calls or encounters, and being able to even possibly take a bird. And that
Absolutely.
was one of the cool things that attracted me when you first told me about you breaking into this program a couple of years ago.
Yeah, for sure. And I see that, like, in theory, we felt like that was going to be a use case for the program. And I've got 500 survey responses from people over the past 2.5, 3 years, because every time you go on one of these hunts, I kick you a survey automatically, and folks write back. And I time and time again, I'll get a parent or a hunter saying, it felt so good to know I had a safe place to take my kid and there wouldn't be other hunters running around being competitive and aggro. Or I'd have somebody say, it was a tough year for my family. We couldn't travel a lot. It was such a value to have a place near Corvallis or near Salem where I could get out a few times, and thank you. I didn't have time to go to Eastern Oregon and take a 5-hour weekend trip.
Right.
But I had access really close to me. And to me, that's like the most subtle but yet powerful achievement of the program, is that we've opened up this niche, which is close to where people actually live in Oregon. And also very, very high quality hunting. The Willamette Valley is, if you look at the numbers in the data, it's just getting really, really, really good for turkey hunting, but it's hard to find a place to hunt.
Yeah.
And like our message as an agency for years, and when I moved here from South Carolina, I always heard, go to White River, go to White River. Well, White River is crazy, and it's very difficult hunting, and the success is very low. There's birds there, but it's very difficult. So, one of my goals of the program, and really my work in Toto with turkeys, is like to tell people there's other places than White River. And if you want to get on birds and have some success, like, consider the Willamette Valley, all C Willamette units, Siuslaw, those 3 units in particular. You might have to knock on some doors. If that's nerve-wracking for you, consider a hunt by reservation property. But there's other options within an hour or two of our major cities than White River, if you want to get interactions with birds. So yeah, you can't have the property all to yourself all year. That's not the spirit of this. It is quite difficult to get a reservation, particularly in the spring. But we do put a lot of people on the landscape, and if you want a close to home hunt, these are pretty high quality and certainly close. And like you said, it's a good chance to get on birds. And we'll talk tactics in a little bit. I can't stress enough the importance of encounters.
Well, I remember we had that hunt together where, I was just there to observe and hang out with you. You were kind of not necessarily guiding, but, being there as the main resource for the property. And we had 2 hunters that never really had even hunted the valley before. And we were getting calls, we were getting callbacks, we were getting, everything from clucks, putts, the gauntlet of turkey language for the springtime, and which is some of the most like educational benefits of kind of having these like high populated dense areas that not a lot of people get to, or the average person gets to see every now and then, especially if you're not within, the Corvallis or those high concentrated units of turkeys, right?
Absolutely. And and I've had people have some good experiences on hunt by reservation properties, then gain the confidence and the skills to, whether they harvested a bird or not, to then say, okay, I know how this game works. Let me go play in public land. And so there's a value to there beyond the pure numbers of hunter days of field that we're posting. But even then, those are impressive. I mean, we're just, again, putting a lot of people on the landscape in a niche. The way I view it is it's this niche of land that was untapped otherwise. And a tie-in with backcountry hunters and anglers is this organization is all about public lands awareness and putting people on public lands. There's a public access component to hunt by reservation, because while they're technically not public land, we're creating public access on private land. So I think that's essential. I mean, who cares who's the owner if we're making it public access to some level? So that's really the spirit of this too. Is I think in the last year I've put up 3,000 to 4,000 acres of quality hunting land that's technically private, but now is public access. So
no, I think because when
cool.
you boil it down for everything, especially on BHA, it all comes down to opportunity, right? And you're creating opportunity. We should probably move off to maybe the reg changes and just looking at time wise, but I do want to address one question here in the chat, because I've also noticed that a lot of the properties are within the Willamette Valley. And so there's a question here where it says, Brandon, any reason why there aren't any Eastern Oregon properties in the Hunt by Reservation program? Eastern Oregon is private only starting 12/1, and the program would have been a great resource for this part of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. That's Talha's question. Hello, Talha. Thank you for joining us today. My quick and dirty answer to this is that Eastern Oregon has a strong cadre of wildlife managers out there, and they simply prefer to manage their region discreetly. They do a good job out there, and I've visited with them. I trap turkeys with them. I know those guys, and it's just not quite the perfect fit for some of those landowners. We've had some talks, and just nothing really materialized. Whereas on the west side, I've had better luck, and the relationships with the landowners just made more sense for public access hunting at this time. It could happen in the future. We'll kind of see how it goes, but just hasn't been the right fit for some of the landowners where the turkeys are hanging out right now.
Cool.
Because ultimately, it's a landowner focused program,
right?
Like I don't just get to pick who. It's really a courtship with each landowner, and that's part of the fun. But it's really what they want. I've had people drop out of the program and people join, and I'll always prefer what a landowner needs, and we don't have the right kind of landowners out there quite yet.
Sure. Oh yeah, great question. Let's shift gears a little bit into kind of like the reg changes. I think it's pretty crazy, and going back into the opportunity and access and kind of keeping hunters out on the landscape. There's a pretty crazy extension, and I know you're a little bit more of an expert on it. So I'm going to hand it over to you to kind of talk through. But from my understanding, we now at least have till January 31st to bag turkeys. Yeah,
that's right. Well, you call me an expert. I'll disagree with you on that. You're my friend, but I know a couple things. So what I can do is say, if people are following along and they want to check out the regs, you might say like Google Oregon Bird Regulations 2021, and you can follow along. I'll try to also share my screen. So
let me see if I should be able to
figure this out together.
All panelists, go for it. Or who can start? Right. Is
that working?
I can see it. Yeah.
Okay, great. So I just Googled Oregon Bird Regulations 2021. A lot of fish and game agencies have these website views. I don't like them. I just get confused. I don't think they have everything. So a little pro tip here is go to PDF downloads. If you all are tracking with me, click on PDF downloads, download the actual regs. And this is a mirror copy of what you might pick up at Cabela's or the agency office. And then another tip is to do this on your phone and then download this PDF to your library so that you can have it offline. And I think it's page 18 or 19. Here we go. Yeah, so go to page 18 and 19 in the regs, and that's turkey regulations. So I'll just go off this while I highlight the major changes for the past couple of years. And that's a big purpose of this Zoom, because in daily conversation with people out in the world and my hunting buddies and people that email me, I'm hearing that a lot of people in the public haven't quite caught on to some changes, which are all in good favor, all doing a favor for turkey hunters. So all changes are going to be highlighted typically. So just every year, look out for those yellow changes. The big ones here are going to be in terms of season dates. And Chris gave you a little teaser earlier. I'll recap right now. So the first major change is at the front end of the season for Eastern Oregon. We've started that season on September 1st now. Now, it used to be the second Saturday in October, which this year, for example, was October 9th. Well, for areas in these game units, which are all around Grant County, okay, this is that John Day area, which I mentioned earlier, and then a portion of the Heppner unit, which is marked on this map. For anything with these crosshatches in these three units, Murderers Creek, Northside, and Desolation, and the portion of Heppner, hunters can start turkey hunting on September 1st. Well, the real spirit of this was twofold. A, there's archery hunters and rifle hunters, maybe some muzzleloader, out deer hunting and elk hunting during those time periods, maybe bear hunting. And we wanted to give them some extra opportunity to harvest birds in this region on public lands. And I stress public lands because what happens is right along this highway going into John Day, that's the John Day River right there where my mouse is moving. Turkeys in this mountain range to the north and in Murderers Creek to the south, they get cold because of the snow and they start coming down into the John Day Valley and hammering private lands. And I think we trapped 800 birds there last year, which is incredible. Somewhat disappointing because I went turkey hunting in Murderers Creek and there weren't as many turkeys because our boys trapped a lot of them. So, but just know there's a whole lot of turkeys here right now. And starting September 1st, if you happen to be in the region archery hunting or rifle hunting for other species, you might as well pick up a fall turkey tag. You stand a really good chance, especially early season, of encountering flocks in the mountains above the John Day River. If you're not big game hunting, then this just means you have a wide season during which to chase turkeys. This change, I will say, makes Oregon have one of the longest turkey seasons in the nation. The only one I could find that was longer was Texas. And in order to make it longer, you have to hunt with a bow. So we have technically the longest, most generous turkey season in the nation right now because of this change, and then the change that I'm going to talk about next. It's not in yellow because it technically went into effect last year, but you'll notice for general Western Oregon fall season, the end date is January 31st. And previously, it was December 31st. So we've added a month to the Western Oregon fall turkey season. That's great because most of your deer seasons and your elk seasons are finished by that time. So, you don't have something else to distract you or work on. you can shut it down with your big game seasons, and you've got a whole extra month now to pursue a fall turkey in Western Oregon. A little subtle point, I always forget this, is that the season is until January 31st in Eastern Oregon too, but as Talha pointed out, that's only on private land. So you've got to finish up earlier if you want to hunt on public lands. And the spirit here is, if anybody's curious, we want the birds on public land. We want public opportunity. We want those birds to do well. So we don't want to kill them too hard while they're on public. We don't necessarily want them hanging out by the hundreds on private land. So there's a tension and a balance there. So we shut down the hunting on the public land, which is probably about right here, where I'm moving the mouse, and right here, and the 2 or 3 miles along this highway at the Murderers Creek North Side unit boundary. That's mostly private. And that's where you can hunt if you have access there. So those are the 2 main reg changes in terms of season. High level point is that now we've got like 150 something days to hunt fall turkeys in Oregon, which, is way underutilized. I'm going to try to switch here. I made a couple slides, but probably not going to use them. Can you guys see these numbers here? Or are we still on the website share?
Still on the website, but I wonder if you just stop sharing your screen.
Yeah, I'm going to reshare that.
Yeah.
Okay. I always fumbles me up a little bit on these Zoom conferences. Okay, now do you see a grid of numbers?
Yep.
All right. So in the context of reg changes and why you should go fall turkey hunt, I wanted to show people some numbers if you're a numbers kind of person. We have such a generous season. You can take 2 birds. This reg hasn't changed. You can take 2 birds in the fall. One can be Eastern. The other has to be Western. You could take 2 Western. And you can take 1 hen in a season in Oregon. So very generous in terms of tag restrictions. Let's check out these numbers. Both Western and Eastern fall tag sales. These are tag sales. And I kind of broke it down by resident and non. And then non-resident and youth, and then some grand totals. Overall, you can see that tag sales are increasing. Now, a quick note on 2021, that's incomplete data. I mean, there's still a couple hundred people that are probably going to buy a tag within the next 2 months or month and a half to finish turkey season. So I'd fully expect. I mean, we're already better than 2020. I'd fully expect a couple hundred tags here. To show a steady increase in interest in tag sales for turkey. Eastern fall turkey is the same thing. You might ask, well, why the heck is it 428 here? My suspicion is that people were still buying paper tags a lot back then. This was as customers were transitioning to e-tagging and using the ELS. So as they figured out how to buy stuff online, and had to because of COVID starting in 2020, we saw a major jump there. But the real point of the numbers that jumped out to me and I wanted to share with the folks is really this fall to spring tag ratio. And it's not a surprise, but neat to point out that we just don't hunt fall turkeys a lot in Oregon. The ratio of fall to spring tag purchases for residents is around 8%. Non-res is a little higher, but the overall average is 8%. Meaning you got 63,000 people buying a spring tag and only 4,800 or so buying a fall tag. I looked at harvest success. Harvest success hovers around 40, somewhere in the 40 to 50% range for fall turkey hunters, which is way more than spring average. So my question is, why aren't we hunting fall turkeys more? A lot of, long season. You can use a shotgun, whether it's incidental or on purpose. There's a lot of good opportunity out there for fall turkey hunting, whether you want to take a tom or a hen. And so that's a message I wanted to really share with folks this in this talk tonight, this pint night was take a try at fall turkey hunting. Last reg change, almost forgot, but Michael Klein wanted me to mention this one too, is that if you're a sports pack buyer, if this was a live event, I'd probably ask people to raise their hands because I'm always curious who buys a sports pack or not.
I do every year.
Every year. If you buy the sports pack, then in years past you would just automatically get a spring turkey tag by default that came with the sports pack. Starting this January 1st, when you got to buy your new license, that's a reminder. You'll get an option to either get the spring turkey tag or get a voucher for some sort of fall turkey tag. And that's going to be either a Western fall turkey tag or an Eastern. You can choose later on the fall tag because they won't be ready to buy yet is the issue. So in January, when you start to buy your new hunting licenses, you'll have to make that choice. Do I want to go ahead and commit to a spring tag? But if you know you're not going to be hunting spring turkey, you could say, well, I'll just get a fall voucher and redeem that for either my Eastern or Western fall tag, depending on where you want to hunt that year. So technical change, not a huge deal, but worth mentioning.
Yeah, definitely good to know. Definitely good to know. Well, cool. I mean, like this is nuts. I didn't realize the tag sales had that much of it. I mean, 8% of basically the spring hunters are assuming that, spring hunters are also fall hunters, right?
Yeah. I mean, anecdotally, I thought it makes sense because people love gobbling toms. That's the big reason you get addicted to it, because they hear that gobble. They gobble in the fall too. It's not a spring hunt where you're getting him to hammer 25 times and come in. It's not like that, but you'll hear plenty of turkey talk, kikis, gobbles, yelping. You can learn a lot about turkeys and turkey hunting by getting out there in the fall. So
I think that's a perfect segue into turkey tactics.
Okay. What do you want to know, Chris? You've been killing some turkeys here the past couple of years, so.
But I've been sticking to the springtime, man. I've never shot. I've never harvested a fall turkey. Well, let's stop sharing that screen real quick.
All right, I'm stopped.
But yeah, no, I've never harvested one, but
okay.
I know some people who are here today have. But I've been around a bunch of fall turkeys. Usually I deer stand or I hunt from a deer stand for blacktail every single year. And I usually always have fall turkeys coming in. Unfortunately, the area that I'm in, I usually hunt, sometimes during the year, I usually hunt a private property where these turkeys are, and just the landowner doesn't like taking fall turkeys. He only allows for spring hunting. Which is fine. I'm totally fine with that. But I do get to hear a bunch of they're talking all the time. I think I was telling you this earlier, either today or the day before, but I had like a 5-minute talking match or just talking session with a hen, just kikis back and forth, just back and forth. It was cool. But yeah, no, I'm interested to hear what your thoughts are on turkey tactics and success and stuff like that. So.
Yeah, nothing mind-blowing. I see Joel wrote in. What's up, Joel? Ambush, LOL. He's right. That's one of the most straightforward ways. Spot and stalk, ambush, some mixture of those two can work where, let's say you've got a property that you've been hunting for a couple of days, or you're just familiar with the property over the years, you'll learn their pattern. And if you call a bio, they'll tell you this. You need to pattern the birds. And I asked one of the guys who has been hunting our Hunt by Reservation properties his thoughts on what he's seeing, and he said that they had their pattern. And I think if you watch that, meaning where do they roost, where do they come off the roost, where do they feed through the day, Where do they loaf? Where do they go back to feed? Where do they go back to roost? If you start to like understand their cycle, you could just set up in a concealed spot and wait patiently and so-called ambush them that way. One of your more boring ways to hunt, but if you want to be successful, I'd say ambush is a good way to do it. You need to just study their patterns. I think the calling can be successful, much like spring turkey hunting or elk hunting. Locating birds is super important, and if you can't do that visually with your naked eye or using optics, then sometimes throwing a call out there into the landscape can at least get birds to give away their location, at which point you could continue to call, or if that's not effective, you could switch to a spot and stalk or ambush situation. But I wouldn't forget the calling entirely, because that can help you locate birds, especially right off the roost. For sure. I don't use decoys much in general, but I've heard of some folks having some success with decoys in the fall, with the caveat that you might want to use more. But again, I'm not really, that's just a lot to manage, 6 or so. But if you had a private property and you wanted to set up not 9 or 8 decoys or 6 at a spot they like to come, that could work. It's just a lot more to manage. I should mention that dogs are legal to hunt with in the fall in Oregon, and not every state is like that. It is a traditional way of turkey hunting in the United States that is essentially where you send a dog in to bust up a flock. Because let's remember, turkeys in the fall and winter, they do flock up into huge groups, a dozen, dozens, even hundreds of birds sometimes. So that dog can get on a turkey's scent, eventually see them, and go in there raising all hell and bust up the turkeys a lot faster than you could. It's amazing. And those turkeys will scatter. And then the traditional technique is to sit down about where they scattered and then run some assembly yelps like a boss hen would, to then call birds back in. And you're telling those birds which have scared away, hey, it's safe now. Let's come party again. Let's come back together. And I had a guy, the very first hunter of Hunt by Reservation this fall at the OSU property. He's a very interesting guy, and he called me after. We talked a few times, and he used that technique, and he killed a bird the first day out. And he was an older gentleman, and he was one of the very first people to trap and transplant turkeys up in the White River unit back in the 60s, when he was just a young guy. And he remembered doing that as part of the National Wild Turkey Federation chapter years and years and years ago. So yeah, that was just a neat little story. But he busted up the flock and called him back to him and shot a bird. So that's it. The only other thing I can think of is that birds will be pressured at this point. So they could be wary of calls. They could be wary of locations where they've been shot before. And wouldn't you, right? So just keep that in mind as you're turkey hunting in the fall, and adjust your tactics accordingly. If there's shotgun shells at a particular blind location at one of our properties or out in the woods, try something different. Learn the key. That's a cool fall call. I don't know of a lot of people who actually do it unless they're savvy pros. Learn that one. But it's really a time to, and I'll shut up here in a second. I think it's really a time to slow down and lean into your creativity and try to figure out ways to hunt a turkey that's not always straightforward, and might be ambush, might be spot and stalk, might be some calling. It's really just going to test your sensitivity to adjusting to the situation, if that makes sense.
For sure. Okay. And I think that puts us great into a question here from Brian. who wants a clarification on that. Locating calls are, well, he wants to clarify, are locating calls effective, like owl crow, stuff like that?
Oh yeah. Good question, Brian. I think so. I think for sure, especially pre-dawn, before when birds are on the roost. I mean, I did it last year. I turkey hunted one day, killed a tom. It was fun. They were hard, but I was able to locate them, the group of toms, because that's something I'll point out. Toms will tend to group up in the fall. I think I located them with an owl call, and I, did just my standard sequence. I did a little soft owl call, nothing, and I hit an aggressive owl call, really jacked it up, and like 6 or 8 toms hammered up in some Doug fir trees on this property, and that principle of shot gobbling a bird works in the fall, works in the spring, works in the winter, works in the summer, whenever. You're just scaring a bird into giving away his location. So sure.
It's probably not
mouth or slate calls. Yeah. I was in California once. I used to live there at a buddy's place, and I didn't turkey hunt at the time, but I wanted to. And this is on a winery. And there was out in Sonoma, California, and there were so many turkeys. And I remember waking up one morning, it was my birthday. I was visiting them for my birthday, and I was just getting into turkey hunting, and I woke up and I thought I was dreaming of gobbles. Like, because they'll get in your ears in spring season. You'll hear gobbles during the day. And I thought, man, I'm just dreaming of birds. I want one so bad. But no, it was out like literally 15 feet from the bedroom window. There were these turkeys up in a low oak tree. And so I woke up and there was probably 60 turkeys there. And they fed off into this winery on the neighbor's property. And I just got out and I had a slate call with me. I wasn't hunting and I was just messing around. And I ripped on the slate call, went and grabbed some coffee. We ate breakfast. 45 minutes later, 100 turkeys came walking up to the gate. This is the middle of the fall.
This was the fall.
Yeah, it was like, no, it wasn't my birthday. It was we were going down for Thanksgiving. So it was Thanksgiving week of that year, and it took them a while, but literally 100 turkeys came, and they were doing all the sounds, Chris, like you heard in your deer stand the other day. Yeah. They were putting and yelping and gobbling and purring, and they were doing all the sounds. So Brian P., yes. The calls are effective. It's not going to be your back and forth mating situation. It's just going to be, you might need to change the language a little bit, but the calls are still effective for locating and for bringing them closer. Yes.
And it's still going to be probably the same situation in the spring of like, if they are getting educated by calls, the farther we get into season, they might also be, a little bit call shy. But that doesn't mean, because what I've found too is that, on those long deer stand sits where there's nothing happening midday, I've seen, turkeys come on through. I give a couple calls. They don't say anything just because I've been talking to them for like 2 days straight. But they'll circle back, right? They'll circle back just like spring turkeys, they'll circle back, do the hour or 2 hour and run through that area. And sure enough, they're just looking straight up at me because they're like, we heard you call from that specific area, and you've seen that before too. So anyway.
Oh yeah. Yeah. That's worked out in my favor, and it's embarrassed me a couple of times. I think, I hunted with Kyle Smith a little bit 2 years ago, and I got turkeyed a lot. And when I say I got turkeyed, it's exactly what you're talking about, that I called, they honored me, but I got impatient and moved somebody else. And then they showed up to the exact spot that I was at.
Yeah.
But I wasn't there anymore because I got impatient. And I got turkey. That's what I say. Elk will do the same thing. So I think the lesson there is patience. And it's tough. It's tough. You got to make a judgment call there. But if I feel like they honored me and talked back, but didn't come immediately, it can pay to wait and just hang around.
Oh yeah, because so much
show up.
You're talking more of the spring session too, right?
But even fall, I think what you were trying to intimate is that that dynamic can happen in the fall. It might even be more delayed.
Yeah. Whereas
Um,
like, springtime is definitely a running gun, but still very much a patience game. I would say fall turkey is even more of a patience game if you
yes.
want a bad one.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. Well, we are getting down to the wire. I don't know if there's any other questions that people have that are dying, but here we go. You mentioned that this recording will be posted later. Where can I find this? That will be on Facebook. I believe we're going to try and post it to Facebook, but it will for sure be up on the chapter has a YouTube page. If you just type in on YouTube, Oregon Backcountry Hunters. Oregon chapter Backcountry Hunters on YouTube. That should come up with the page, and it has all of these virtual pint nights that we've been having the last year and a half since COVID. So you can definitely see this and show people and do that. So
if we're going to do that, since it's recorded, folks, guys, take a screenshot now or watch the recording and take a screenshot. I put together some resources that either have always been around or have changed recently. And if you dig through these, you're going to learn a lot and really excel your turkey hunting for the next year or couple. Some are our resources. Obviously, copy of the regs. Jess Saul on our media team has done a good job bringing some content called How to Hunt Turkey in Oregon. Brand new, fantastic resource. Scott Hagen helped put together a lot of this, and Jess really polished it for us. National Wild Turkey Federation has a fall turkey hunting guide, and that's more like a summary of different states' regs. One guy who really helped me a lot coming up was Shane Simpson, fellow South Carolinian. So has a lot of good video content out there, sells mouth calls, has mouth call mechanics video. If you're getting into this and wanting to polish your skills, he's like a turkey Yoda. So somebody to check out. Up on game bird stats, if you're a numbers person and trying to figure out where you want to go turkey hunt, we've updated these. Kelly Walton, who works on my team, she put together some brand new maps. You've probably seen our turkeys by region maps for the last decade. Well, she's freshened those up last year, and you can see where turkeys are now, not where they were 10 years ago. So definitely check out the game bird stats and maps. And then lastly, Hunt by Reservation. That's the program I run. So check that out.
Is there any more Hunt by Reservation dates coming up?
Oh yeah. So I've got, I'll share screen again.
And then after you do that, I've probably got one.
Yeah. See all these greens?
Yep.
Those are coming up now for these two Soap Creek Ranch properties. You've got to really be on those, but every so often they pop up. I think there's a 2 or 3 week lead time on those. And yeah, that's going to be your best chance for fall turkeys. And we'll be back in the spring too. And our upland properties have plenty of space left.
So that we can kind of keep on time and get you back to your wife's birthday. Again, Megan, thank you so much for letting us steal Brandon.
I got to go shuck oysters. We're doing raw oysters.
Well, that sounds like a thanks for the invite, man. No, I'm just kidding. Joel had a question. What food sources are they hitting in the fall as part of the scouting and patterning? Joel, I hope you opened up that oh, now I can't even think of the organ name. The gullet.
Crop.
The crop.
Yeah.
Thanks, man. The crop of the birds. I know you've killed some fall turkeys this year, so but yeah, Brandon, what do you got for that question?
So I think it's location dependent, but your typical grasses and forbs, they'll be hammering that a little bit too. If it's like a neighborhood site where they're feeding them, well, that if it's an agricultural, like maybe there's horses nearby and somebody, or chickens, and somebody throws grain for their chickens, they'll hammer that. They could be eating. I found snails. If there's any acorn drop left with a hard mast, they could have some of that. That's probably eaten up pretty good by now. they could be eating planted grain. So if farmers are starting to plant, yeah, either just sprouted wheat. What else could they be hitting? That's the major stuff. That's the major stuff that I would see. If it's going to be your green up, there might be some residual hazelnuts if that's your situation.
That's honestly, the green up is probably one of the best options for the Willamette Valley too, is because it stays so green. There's always a fresh food source year round, right? It's a mild climate. Mine are on apples, Chris. So yeah, they're eating orchards. They're run through orchards.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
it. I guess we got one. I'm gonna hold you for one more question. Any advice? This is from
Brian. I got a couple of.
Yeah. Any advice for Berry Creek Ranch?
Yeah. Okay. So Berry Creek Ranch, I would do a little prayer the night before that they show up. And then other than that, you really got to you got to luck out on whether they're there or not. These birds hang out on Soap Creek primarily, and then they drift out to Berry Creek occasionally. So we've had birds killed on there this year. If I was going to hunt it tomorrow, I would be an overachiever, and I would go the night before, and I would try to roost some birds, and that's going to be 4 o'clock time frame, and just wait around until 4:30 and see if you can't hear where birds are roosting, and at least have some intel for the next day. Whether you do that or not, I would probably just hammer the calls, because if the birds are on the ranch that day, it can't hurt. You're going to hear them. They might come over. If they're not on the ranch but nearby, you need to bring those birds over. Mm-hmm. And in a situation like that where birds are probably just off site, if you're good with calls, if you feel like your sound quality is good, I would hammer it and wait, and hammer it and then wait. And that's really the best you can do when you're not right up under a roost like you are on some other places.
Elijah came in real quick with are they still running cattle on Soap Creek? And do turkeys avoid them?
Yes and no. Cattle run there year round. And the way Soap Creek works is we've got an interactive map that's posted on the barn door. And Mike, the ranch manager, he puts some, I think he's using blue painter's tape because he's old. He's like very anti-tech, but that he just puts these marks on the map to show you where the cattle are going to be. And then each day, where not to go because there's cattle there. And he moves them seasonally. I think, they'll be in one field a couple of weeks and another field a couple of weeks. So yes, there's cattle. We have indicators so that you don't go in the cattle fields. What was the second question? Do they like that or not?
Yeah. Do turkeys avoid the cattle?
No, they don't. They hang out with them sometimes. The ecology there is that cattle go to the bathroom. They got cow patties. Bugs come to get the cow patties. Insect cycle creates little worms. Turkeys love to eat those. So they trail cattle and live with cattle in a symbiotic relationship. Look, middle school science. They don't mind cattle at all, and it's actually probably a really great property because of those cattle.
Cool. Right on. Sweet. If there's any more questions, throw them in. But if not, then I'll just say, Brandon, thank you so much for taking this hour and talking with us and talking to everybody that's been here. Everybody that came tonight, thank you for hanging out. Here's a quick one. Have you filled your tags, Brandon?
Talha, I've been busy with bigger critters this year, so
yeah, which is pretty amazing. You bagged a coastal archery elk in September, and then you just went on you just bagged a cow elk in Nevada, right?
Yeah, I got super lucky, drew a Nevada tag this year, and just got back from a fun hunt there. So I I literally had to I had to write that on paper just to focus me and not chase birds. So
yeah, because usually me and you are chasing a lot of ducks this time around. We've been out once together.
I've been out twice.
Yeah.
I just haven't bird hunting because I had those two big. I mean, I needed to get the freezer filled with, and this was two good opportunities to do it. So that's done. And Tahoe, I'd love to fill those 2 tags. I'd be happy with one, to be honest. Or I'd frankly just be happy to go sit there and be with the turkeys. That's getting to be my big pleasure, is just being out there with them and flowing with how they talk to each other and moving the landscape. That's really why I do it. But elk and turkey are our favorites, so it would be cool to get one.
Okay. Well, cool, man. Well, again, thank you so much. For everybody on, this will be posted on YouTube. Thank you so much for joining us. Hopefully we can have these in-person meetings this coming year. Fingers crossed. And hopefully we can get out of this virtual, but yeah, thanks, Brandon.
Yeah. Hey, Chris, thanks for putting this together, and congrats on the new role. Excited for what you got coming down the pike here, and call me up anytime to do one of these talks. Like talking turkey with folks, and encourage everyone tonight. Thank you guys too. Really look at a fall turkey tag. We've got tremendous success rates, and you can take a hen or Tom and learn a lot about the species, which will push you into spring for the traditional turkey hunts. And I really think it's the best state in the nation for turkey hunting right now. So a lot of guys complain, oh, the deer, the elk, there's no deer and elk, and they gripe a lot. There's nothing to gripe about with turkey. It is prime time, and so just make the most of that and encourage folks to get out and try to experience that here in Oregon.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. Well, maybe we'll have to do another one come spring, and we can talk about spring tactics and get fun with that. Maybe we can do that in the field. So
all right, 10-4.
All right, y'all. Well, thank you guys so much. Brandon, thank you again. And we'll hopefully see you guys out in the field.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Good night.
Bye.